We've got an amazing speaker for you. For anybody who joined the workshop yesterday, the feedback that we've had has been incredible. They said, we want to hear more, we want to hear more. So guess what? We're going to hear more from Erik. Now, Erik is our VP of Product at ReviewTrackers. He thrives on complex programs, and he talks about how we can act today and predict tomorrow, which I think is absolutely fascinating. So to give us guidance on how we can all incorporate reputation management in our program, we've got Erik. Let's welcome him to the stage. Now, Erik is a scarily good golfer, if you want to talk about golf. Personally, not my thing, so I said, anything else, Erik? He's got Bertie. Let's talk about Bertie, his hunting dog. So that's your conversation starters with Erik. Over to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so before we get started, obviously we're talking about reputation management and online reviews. Online reviews take a lot of different shapes. Today we're going to primarily talk about location-based reviews, but that doesn't excuse us from also bringing in product reviews, employee reviews, app store reviews for your product team, for your mobile experiences. So just know that this is all about reviews on the internet, not just location-based reviews, even though that's what I'm focused on. So the start of any presentation, I'm told, you got to get a chuckle to get people warmed up a little bit. So the internet never fails at providing a good chuckle. This is a business, I think, out of Boston. And the shop owner had a good laugh with a negative review that he got from a customer and actually just embraced it and said, come try that really average meatball that one guy on Yelp said was pretty terrible. So let's take a look at a brief history of online reviews and how we got here. So is anybody familiar with the 99-1 rule of the internet? Internet content. All right, so the rule is that 90% of us are lurkers, right? We're actively and passively consuming content, but we're not actually generating much, right? Then another 9% of us occasionally contribute a blog post or an article or an online review, right? And then there's that 1% of everybody on the internet that is actually heavy contributors, right? So keep that in mind when we're talking about reputation management, customer discovery, customer retention, all that good stuff. So it's the late 90s, eBay, e-commerce, Amazon, TripAdvisor, right? The internet is just kind of being born. And we needed a mechanism to get people to trust what they were reading on the internet since it was so new, right? So here comes online reviews. It's real, authentic feedback from people just like you, probably part of that 9 or that 1%, who wanted to offer up their opinion on them making the leap to buy something online or to share their experience with a business in real life. So the dot-com boom happens, we get to 2004 and 2005, and this internet thing's actually pretty real. So some folks from PayPal and eBay said, wouldn't it be great if we could have an online directory of businesses throughout the world and have it be discovered online? So they started Yelp. Around the same time, Google was getting started. Obviously, they had a very powerful search engine, but they saw into the future. They were predicting that future and how bringing the map, right, from paper to digital and that discovery engine was going to be so important. So they really started early in investing in Google Maps. And then on the e-commerce front, right, brands and retailers were starting to put their stores online, and they needed a way to generate all these online reviews, manage these online reviews, get insights from all these online reviews. And so you had, companies like Bazaar Voice and Power Reviews. Before my role at ReviewTrackers, I was actually the VP of Product at Power Reviews, so I know that space quite well. So you get to 2009, and instead of just this one-way conversation of posting reviews online, everybody started saying, hey, we should be able to close the loop, not just privately with responding to those negative reviews or those positive reviews, but actually showing that we care and posting those business responses next to those reviews online, right? That does a lot of really good things. One, that shows that you're paying attention for everybody who's not that reviewer and says this company actually gives a damn, right? But it also gives an opportunity to potentially change that negative experience into a positive one. So it's a funny one. I don't know if you can see it. The guy maintaining the cash register was having a bad day, taking it out on customers, and so he took him out back and shot him, right? So I wouldn't advocate for doing those kinds of business responses all the time, but obviously you can have fun with it. The internet never fails. So then you get into the 2010s, and this is where we see like a fundamental change in online reviews. Google and TripAdvisor and Yelp and everybody, they were kind of competing in the early 2010s, and then Google really stepped on the gas and left everybody in the dust, right? At least from a online reviews perspective for location-based reviews. So you get into the 2020s, there's an explosion of user-generated content online, and that's just getting started, right? It's not just the stars in the comments anymore, it's photos, and it's TikTok videos, and it's AI, right? All this AI generative content that's coming in massive waves, and how are we gonna deal with that? What kind of new experiences are we gonna have for customer discovery? It's actually pretty interesting. Google has about a 15-year head start on Apple, but Apple is seeing how big of an opportunity it is for the Maps experience. And so you've seen very material investments in Apple trying to catch up to Google on the map experience and the programs that they afford businesses to manage their online reputation and presence in Google Maps. The prominence of near-me searches, right? So I think everybody, we did in the workshop yesterday kind of an empathy exercise, right? Where we were actually searching for a business around here in London. And the near-me searches are real, and they're only getting more important for location-based searches. And then obviously artificial intelligence is gonna change everything. It's very early days, which we'll get into here in a minute, but it's fundamentally changing the way that we are discovering businesses and interacting with businesses, and search and local search is no different. So why reputation management matters even more than ever. So does anybody know what kind of art this is actually called? My mom was a professor, and so is, making it very important that I study my vocabulary. It's an anamorphosis type art, and that just means that depending on the perspective in which you're looking at the art, or in this case the data, it can change. Right? And so reputation management follows that same kind of paradigm, where you as CX practitioners might see it as part of that integrated signal and data source, but other people inside your organization, be it the field managers, be it your marketing team looking at this for customer acquisition, see something very different and a very different set of opportunities. So keep that in mind. Right? So online reputation primarily is customer acquisition first and customer retention second, but that doesn't mean that one is more important than the other, right? So responding to that negative review and closing the loop, and then incorporating that data set into your customer retention strategy as CX practitioners is really important. The other thing is that, back to that perspective, just because you're solving for that one pain point and that one negative experience or that one positive experience and thanking them, every single person who finds you and is considering you on the internet is reading that same information and making a judgment call on if you're paying attention and they want to do business with your business. So I'm old enough to remember the original search engine, right, in Yellow Pages, right? And so you find this with kind of any technology, that the first iteration of the technology tends to take what is existing and makes it a little bit better. And then there's some kind of paradigm shift in that adoption curve that makes it fundamentally different. And search, we're in the middle of that right now, right? If you think about the early internet, we had news sites, right? And Ben Thompson, who's a tech analyst in the States, I don't know if anybody listens to Stratechery or any of his podcasting, much smarter guy than me. But he had the observation that on the internet, you had traditional newspaper sites that went online, right? You had online classifieds that are now on the internet. You had the news sites on the internet, and it was just text, right? And that was all well and good and different in that you could see any newspaper anywhere in the world that you were now competing with instead of in your local market. But what really fundamentally changed the internet was the news feed, right? You think about the Facebook newsfeed, instead of being walls and posts, right? That was the fundamental shift. And AI is about to bring that to customer acquisition and search. So you're starting to see that near me optimization where you actually have businesses leaning into this near me, right? This is a famous Thai food place in New York City. They actually changed their name to Thai Food Near Me. And then there's this electrician out in Omaha that's actually doing that to try to rank higher and acquire more customers. Right? So those are customer acquisition strategies that are kind of in play right now. But from an integrated signal perspective, at least from where I sit, lots of businesses are not taking this online reviews and incorporating it as a integrated signal into their program. And previous speakers have talked about it. There's lots of people who will write and contribute to online reviews that might not respond to a traditional survey, and so you're missing out on potential signal there. The other great thing about reviews is that it's all public. So that means that your reviews are public and easily collectible into your CX program, but so too are your competitors, right? And that's where it gets really interesting. Instead of having to pay for lots of panel studies to get benchmarking and things like that, for your competitors, you can actually just collect all of their reviews and see what their customers are saying. All right. So AI is the talk of everything. And just like I said before, the first iterations and applications of these technologies are taking what already exists and making it a lot easier. So how is that manifesting itself in reputation management, right? Closed loop automation. You have a Google review, you have a ChatGPT or an AI prompt. You can feed it and train it to understand your style, your language, your brand values, and then it can automatically respond using those prompts, right? Makes it a lot easier than having to do it all manually, one by one. Another cool one is summarization, right? So take all this data and ask it questions. In my world with the competitive landscape, we can actually take your reviews and your competitors' reviews and ask it to do a SWOT analysis with that information. So in this case, this is Raising Cane's. It's a quick serve restaurant chain in the States. They compete with like Chick-fil-A and Bojangles. And they thought that this was quite powerful to get some real qualitative alongside the quantitative measures that they're already using in our platform to get signal and action-based insights. So those are like star rating and comments, but reputation management is way more, as we saw yesterday in the workshop, than just the star rating and comments, right? It's your total online presence. It's your making sure your hours of operation are up to date. Those Google and Apple map wars, photos are becoming more and more prominent in the user experience of that search. And so taking AI and applying it to the photos that your customers are uploading with your reviews to detect sentiment, to detect objects, to marry up with your keyword analyses that maybe you're giving to your frontline employees, and providing richer context than just the words in the analyses and the word clouds and things like that, right? So these are all early day applications of taking this very powerful technology and applying it to existing problems. So this is all really, really cool, but we can start with reputation management and fundamentals. What are fundamentals of reputation management? One is review acquisition. So back to that 99-1 rule, right? If you're not doing some sort of solicitation program, even if it's passive solicitation for online reviews, you're missing a huge opportunity. So this was a customer of ours back in the States. They didn't have a solicitation process, and they had pretty low review volume as compared to their competitors. That was impacting their SEO rankings. That was impacting the data that they were collecting. And so rather than send out text messages or do crazy integrations, they just put QR codes in their store, right? And QR codes were a technology in search of a problem pre-COVID, and now everybody has, knows how to do that. So what happened? Well, their volume, 4x'd, and their star rating went from the low 4s to the high 4s. And anybody who's done any search knows that 4-star rating and the quantity of reviews is a really important signal, regardless of what's being said, for consumers that are going to choose to patron your business. This other customer had both a low review problem as well as a lack of a recovery and response process. So they too deployed the simple QR codes. They dedicated a team member to do responding to reviews and be that first point of responding. And they enabled some smart and auto responses to handle the volume. What happened? Okay, they went from responding to 1 in 5 reviews back in 2019 and 2020 to now upwards of 90+% of their reviews are getting responded to. Okay, that doesn't sound that sexy, but what did it actually mean? Okay, well, they were below that 4.0 threshold, right? Which means everybody who was looking at their listings, they saw less than 4, move on, right? 3.9, 3.8. Now they're above that 4 threshold. In 2021, they've actually since gone up to 4.2 with something as simple as putting a QR code in their store, right? It's not that complicated to have some real impact on customer acquisition. So how do you get started, right? I like to break it down into 3 kind of phases. One is, and the most easy is, what do we know? That means something as simple as getting all the data into one place, right? All this data is public. You can get it pretty easily. Couple of hours, you can have all of your reviews for all of your locations and start marrying that up with all of your other CX data from a unified and integrated CX strategy. Once you have all of that, you say, hey, what should we do? And you start doing some of that action planning. Maybe the action planning is for CX improvement experience and is just more ammo for you to bring to the table to say, this is what we should improve. Or maybe if you don't have that buy-in, the what should we do is something simple like, let's start a responding to reviews program or an easy solicitation program, right? And then at least for online reputation management, all of the actions that we are starting to get predictive and prescriptive on are things that can actually be completed self-service inside a platform, right? And that's really powerful to leverage for something like this. So how does this all fit into the broader theme of integrated CX, right? Obviously, social is a very material component to CX practitioners in your all's journey. But back to that perspective, there's lots of people within your organization that may or may not be part of the CX team that can leverage tools like this to influence revenue, to influence customer acquisition, and improve your brand. And I'll leave you with this. Even if you get overwhelmed and intimidated by asking for more reviews or any responding to reviews, at the very least, make sure that your business listings are up to date, right? There's nothing worse than going to a business, thinking it's open, getting there, realize that it closed an hour ago, but Google said it was open, right? That's a terrible experience. Having up-to-date photos, right, for these listings at the bare minimum. These are very simple, easy to maintain, and easy to invest in strategies that can really make an impact on your business. And that's all I got. Questions?
Brilliant, Eric. Thank you so much. So thankfully, we have got some time for some questions. And this is my microphone. I'm hoping that it's on. I think it is. So over to you guys. Any questions for Erik around reputation management? Who am I going to have to throw this to? Hopefully somebody quite close to the front. Any takers, or shall I ask my question? Oh, I've got a question there. You ready? I'm terrible at this. Ready? Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, with the forthcoming of AI, and you're saying that AI is now being looked at actually targeting and reviewing reviews through customer analytics of their language and their speech. Do you think we're going to get to a point where people, aren't even going to bother reading them if they know that they're AI generated?
That's a good question. So I think the bigger question is, how are all these platforms going to deal with all user-generated content, not just reviews, and sussing out what's truly authentic from a human versus AI-generated. At least in the States, Google just won a lawsuit because businesses were saying that even today, before AI has been very prevalent, that they weren't doing enough to detect spam reviews and the authenticity of the reviews on the platform, and it was punishing businesses. Well, they've proven that they're using their own AI to look at all of this content, and they're removing something like 10 or 15% of all reviews that were contributed last year proactively, without having somebody report saying this is bogus, right, to try to combat that. But even though they're doing that today, yeah, it's a real risk to all of these platforms, not just you as a business, and how we're going to deal with this generative AI and the explosion of content, which just means that having processes and tools of authentic solicitation, right, in your store, in your physical location, where all of this metadata signal when you're typing on your phone to contribute this content, it's geo-fenced. Hey, Google knows that you were actually physically at that location, whether you like to or not. That's a signal, right? The velocity in which you're contributing content from different things, that's a signal, right? But yeah, it's quite a big risk, and I think that 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, when we get past that chasm of making what our existing experiences are better, we're going to have a whole new paradigm of how people are searching. I think there was a gentleman in our breakout session yesterday that just went into Bing search, right, that has ChatGPT behind it, and he asked, the AI knows him and did a search, and instead of returning a map, they just returned 3 businesses based on what his criteria were, gave him the star ratings and maybe a little verbatim of a review, and that was good enough for him. So yeah, it'll be really interesting for customer acquisition in the next couple of years.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. It's this question of trust, isn't it? That we've got to trust as consumers, but also that the brands themselves can trust.
Yeah.
And the impact on business is huge. Thank you for that question. Any other questions from other audience? No? One from me then. Can I just ask very quickly, what about your, what advice would you give in the B2B space? Because obviously reviews are becoming much more important in that area as well. Any advice that you give to B2B practitioners?
Yeah, so for B2B, we actually have had a program that has had limited success in the States so far, but is nonetheless important for software reviews, right? So instead of reviews on your business on Google Maps or what have you, it's your G2 Crowd and your Capterra and your Forrester type peer reviews, and aggregating all of that, because those are now really important tools that people are using when they're making business decisions to buy a piece of software or buy a program within their business. And so absolutely, that's still really important.
Yeah, it's the way we're all moving, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Erik.